This is episode 14. Episode 46, Everyday Heroes. This conversation was originally recorded during a strange moment in time, and honestly, I ended up giving it a bit of a retcon. I was a bit tired when I edited it. It was close to the holidays, and lesson learned, nobody listens to podcasts over New Year's. What's interesting is how much of this conversation came from a moment when nobody really knew what the next step was, and everyone was making it up in real time. I'm actually re-recording this intro while I'm at NAMM, which seems fitting. So this is a lightly re-edited and reintroduced episode because some of the conversations deserve a second pass. My guest is Christiane Kinney, an entertainment attorney who's represented everyone from independent musicians to Grammy-winning artists and major estates. She's also a working musician herself and a longtime advocate for artists' rights, which means she understands the creative world from the inside out. In this conversation, we talk about creativity, law, music, parenting, copyright, and what it actually looks like to support creative work when the ground is shifting underneath everyone. This episode is also part of a larger story that you'll hear soon. Okay, let's rewind. This is the Language of Creativity podcast.
Well, hello, Chris. I haven't talked to you in ages without drums playing in the background. Last time we saw each other, it was at NAMM, and it was like in the drum department. We're like, what? Huh? What? Yeah, we should do a thing. Like,
oh my gosh, that was hysterical. I know. I actually am really enjoying being my own boss and calling the shots and having complete say over my clientele this year, and everything that I do, everything I touch are things that I actually believe in to get behind. And you know, there's been a lot of music tech work, honestly, during the pandemic, or things that are more company-based, less artist-based. But I've been working with a lot of companies that are very supportive of artists and want to support the artists and help kind of fill in this gap that's been created by the pandemic. And so, yeah, it's really nice to be able to just make moral decisions about what you're doing and just really set your own path.
And so you were in another law firm.
Yeah. So, I was at one law firm for 20 years and ran the entire entertainment division for a nationwide firm with 25 offices nationwide, and probably would have lived and died there. But they ran into a lot of trouble mainly with departing shareholders and empty lease space. And so they couldn't keep it together anymore. They had to file for bankruptcy. So it was kind of one of these safety blankets that I grew up with. I was a baby attorney when I started with the same people, and we had merged with another firm through that, but I was working with the same people for 20 years. And it was kind of like a 3-week, boom, you're done.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I got several really nice offers. Was a nice competitive market at that time. This may be August of last year. Went to another firm. It was fine while it was. It was not the personalities that I was used to working with. It was a little more aggressive, a little less friendly than just the personalities I had been accustomed to. It was more one person calling all the shots as opposed to committees. And there can be a big death by committee too in law firms. So, you know, it's kind of an either or.
So you walked into the stereotype of what most people would think of the movie version of a law firm.
Yeah, exactly. And
big personalities.
Yeah. So I was
dog eat dog. I
was the happy-go-lucky hippie in a mad packed the firm environment. And then when the pandemic hit, of course, we had 4 people at the time in the music department, and most of our clients were going to be doing literally nothing for at least 6 months. So I was last in, first out, and they had to make massive layoffs. And I was one of those. So, you know, it was one of those moments where, and of course, Sean is in production. And so all the production work dried up overnight. And we were both sitting there going, well, I guess let's take this opportunity to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. You know, like so many did. And so, you know, there was a lot of making puzzles and, and a lot of writing. We did write a book.
And some live stream concerts. I caught one or two of those. They were amazing.
Yeah. We did dinner with the Kinneys every Sunday night for months.
I mean, come on. On a scale of 1 to 10, how epic were your kids' eye rolls at every time you did dinner with the Kinneys? Like, Mom, why are we a TV show right now?
I know. We started it more for us probably than anything, but just as a way to connect with people because we were all cooped up and everybody was looking at four walls. We had a lot of friends that were home alone, just didn't have anybody to visit with them at all. And so we did it as this might be an interesting experiment and it'd be nice to catch up with people. And then we kept doing
the
it.
loneliness. Yeah. For people, I mean, I think in one sense it's absolute utter monkey chaos having children.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, okay, I can have a hug.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was interesting seeing just this wide range of people that would check in with us every Sunday night and people that would text us and that were watching it after the fact and just like, oh, I love how this week you guys did this. Or, they would send in requests. There was one Sunday night where it turned into kind of a jam session where all these people were requesting songs. And so we were just at the piano and goofing off. And so that became part of the thing. It was like dinner and a show. And we were trying to encourage the kids to come up with something creative to do for the audience, like a talent show every week, which was probably the death of it for them. But for us, we were like, okay, well, art is gone, music is gone. Like there's no classes, there's no class structure in distance learning that is supporting the arts in any meaningful way. So we have to do this for them. And what could we create that gives them some way to materialize this, some way to be involved and care that it goes well. And so it all kind of came together and we would come up with these interesting meals or interesting themes, or we binge watched as a family so many things during the pandemic. So we would do like a Walking Dead theme night, or we would do a community night, all these different shows. We were all watching The Office night. So yeah, it was a fun, creative thing that we did for a bit until it just looked like, okay, well, I think this is kind of leveling out as this is what it's going to be for a long time.
Oh my God, the pandemic is going to last longer than a month.
Yeah. Exactly.
I kind of knew that going into it. I'm like, nah, this isn't this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people were on the hopeful end of like, yeah, maybe in like 3 more weeks we'll be able to
3
go
more
to the bar
weeks.
again.
I still have friends that are like, well, maybe after the election, we'll get a real 2-week lockdown and then we'll have a handle on it. I'm like, well, we won't though, because
somebody's going outside.
Well, yeah,
and sneezing all over everything.
100%. We missed the boat on that 2 weeks because everybody at this point is like, I'm not doing that again. And we did travel a little bit. This summer, we went to visit our aunt and uncle in Missouri. And those were the only people that we saw, and our kids' godparents in Sonora. Those are both very conservative areas in the country. So Sonora, California, and then in Missouri. And so we went there.
Don't you come around me with no masks.
Oh my God. Well, and we drove.
I don't want to get your mask hooties.
Yeah. And we drove to Missouri. We drove the whole trip. And so going through different areas and seeing how people would react, it was so polarized and so geographically polarized that you could see it. I mean, you could feel it depending on where you were in a particular state. And you will never, ever, ever be able to do a complete lockdown of this country. It just isn't going to be feasible. And it's sad. I mean, we might have been able to do a meaningful 2-week lockdown, but that's not.
I don't think we have the social distance to power.
Yeah.
To borrow the phrase from, was it Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers, where he's talking about cultures that have very high respect for authority, and we have very high FU. In fact, I think pretty much that's built into our national DNA. So tell someone what to do long enough, and they're going to just do the opposite because
it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, it is sad because I think you're right. I think any effective lockdown that could have happened, people are fatigued now.
Yeah.
And in terms of people management, there's that whole factor of human nature and how that works,
Yeah.
So, and school is tough because I think the moment we send kids back to school, it's definitely going to multiply the numbers. But at the same time, kids and parents both are going insane
Oh my God.
with online learning.
It's so crazy. I mean, I consider us lucky because our son is about to turn 13 and our daughter's 11. And so they're kind of they've got things going and they've got their system in place. I basically have to make sure that they're awake to log in for their first class, but otherwise they're on autopilot now for the most part. Last year was very hard. I say last year, it feels like it's been like 20 years, hasn't it?
A decade ago, last fall.
Ever for parents, especially. But in March 14th, we all remember the day of the lockdown. But when they shut down the schools and we all of a sudden were doing Zoom, I felt so bad for them because, they're just trying to figure out, they had 20 different platforms and they'd have to go to all these different places to get their homework assignments. And then teachers wouldn't check them, or they'd be like, you didn't turn it in properly. And they had to figure out all this technical stuff. And we were all scratching our heads and trying to still work and juggle everything. And it was crazy. And then at a certain point, it leveled out where we're like, okay, I think we all understand. And now everything's on Google Classroom in our school. And so they still have to go to every single teacher's thing and learn how to turn them in a certain way. But they had tech nights where they showed the kids, like, this is how we want you to turn it in. And this is how, so they got far more organized. Last year, it was kind of like you stop. And then all of a sudden, we had these wacky schedules where Ireland would have her classes from 8 to 10 and she was done. And Zayden would have classes at like 11:30 and 1:45 and 2:20 and 4:30. And so you were having to manage all these weird schedules. And then this year, all of a sudden, they're like, oh,
and
it's just
hopefully
normal.
Someone else doesn't need the computer at that time.
Yeah,
right?
we had to upgrade our computer game in the house. And we tried for a while to just make do with like iPads or different things that we had. But they both needed Chromebooks to really pull it off. And I think a lot of households had to do that. But yeah,
the Chromebooks have the unified login, so you can log in one time and then you're automatically logged into all your things, which
that's nice.
Helps a lot because otherwise you're managing all these passwords and logins and kids can't get in. I mean, that's one of the things my wife does now as a librarian is help people get in to their accounts at the beginning of the year. So that part of this year was like bananas. Because, I mean, how do you do that when you can't, like, look over a kid's shoulder and they can't follow directions because it's like, meh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Brain broken.
Yeah, it took us all a while to figure it all out. But yeah, now it feels, I guess, normal. My daughter likes it better. I don't know.
Well, my son likes it better. He did like it better. He liked it better when it was like packet stuff, but he didn't like when the state made a law saying that teachers have to report at the end of every week that says how many kids logged into Zoom for how many minutes. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden this semester, the Zoom load got ridiculous because teachers were mandated to make sure that kids were like staring at a screen receiving on like in real time instruction from a teacher on a platform that would have been better used a different way.
Yes.
And it has other advantages. I mean, there's advantages to in person, but they're not getting used right now correctly. It's just sort of like this whole thing's gotten shoved in. And I've heard from so many parents that are just like, oh my God, the Zoom. It's like my wife's like, I know adults who can't sit in a Zoom for an hour and a half.
100%. I was going to say that. Like I've spoken at a couple music conferences during this time, and there's some that offer CLE, so I'll go ahead and attend the whole day, and that'll be maybe a 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, if that, 7 hour, and you can go ahead and get up and take a break or eat in between these things. That is the most exhausting thing that I've done in this pandemic is sit through a full day of Zoom.
And you sit through depositions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have 2 Zoom depositions.
You do 8-hour courtroom days.
And they're going to be hell, I can tell you right now. They're going to be awful. But yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, and we're going to have an all-day mediation, and everything is virtual from a legal perspective, from the conference perspective. I have a law student that's externing for me right now, and he has one day of law school that's from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. And I mean, it just completely wipes him out. It's terrible. I can't even imagine how hard it is for everybody to learn this way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly thrusting us into a new era.
It is.
The way that World War I sort of did. It's like, okay, into the future.
Yeah, I remember early on, everybody would be excited, like, you want to Zoom? And now it's like, I'm a little burnt on Zoom. Can I just wear my pajamas and call you? And
yeah, I know, because I was like, that's where I was at. I was like, okay, let's get some social groups together and do some Zoom parties. And that worked for about a week. And then some of my coffee shop friends, I'm like, hey, you want to Zoom? And they're like, no, honestly, I'm Zoomed out.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
And it is. It makes you more tired. I don't know why.
Exhausted.
Maybe it is that you just have to push that constant facade. And I think that's what bothers me most about the school aspect. It's like, to tell that they're engaged in class, they're constantly face forward, and there's no time to there's no time to daydream. There's no time to stretch. There's no time to
nothing
cognate in the background. I think
I do know teachers that do physical activities during the class, like one of the law professors at Pepperdine does dance breaks with her class, or
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and even Zayden's science teacher will have them doing push-ups and pop-ups and things for 10 minutes of science, and I'm like, oh, that's great, because they're not getting any physical activity really. I mean, we let him skateboard outside, but...
And what does the research say about exercise and brain development and brain capacity? It's like, you need that. You need to oxygenate your bloodstream. I don't know. Something's getting missed. And I think a lot of it...
So much is getting missed. And just hugging people. And I mean, I think you and I both are very lucky because we are with our family. And even though I'm sure everybody kind of wants to go in a hole and be by themselves every once in a while when you're with the same people over and over, it's very comforting to have family around you. And this would be so much harder for everybody that's by themselves. It just breaks my heart for people. I mean, it really has to be awful. So that was part of our dinners too, was having some sense of community, but it's getting to the point where we've got to figure something else out. It was interesting because early in the pandemic, and when I started my own firm, I started representing a client that was doing some really cool VR stuff. And so I had to get an Oculus. Oh. Yeah. And we would have cocktail parties in virtual reality. And we all had characters that were attached to us, but we had physical bodies. We could hug in VR and shake hands and
really?
People. Yeah. It's so hard to explain what it was. And it was
so was that somehow better?
It was better than Zoom, for sure.
Really?
Because, I mean, you had I know it sounds strange, but yeah, so this was for one of the approved multiverses for Burning Man. And so they did it in VR this year. And there were, I think, 8 different groups, including my client, that had licensed this and created a VR experience for Burning Man. And so there was a big community already attached to that. And then when everybody would meet up in VR and have these experiences and go through portals together and build worlds, and we had all these art installations in VR there, it was really the closest that I've experienced to community since this happened. And to be able to pull that off in VR is something that I'm still in awe of my client for. They really nailed something special. But yeah, it seems weird that you could interact with avatars and have any sense of community. Like, really, I get how weird that sounds, but it was a really cool experience.
Well, I think it's too because you can actually move around your space, which is what's missing from Zoom. I mean, I plan to have my physical therapist on my show at some point, and I redesigned my whole studio and the way I sit because I sit at work a lot. Yeah. And just around the ergonomics of sitting being absolutely terrible for your body.
Yes.
Physiologically. And so I can imagine just being able to kind of like have that openness in you're looking around, you have your hands and your shoulders are open, and maybe you're walking a little bit or you're standing in place, but you can move and you're not out of frame. So also the focus isn't always 3 inches in front of your face.
There's a wide open spaces element to that. I use a meditation app in VR that this is one of those classic silly moments, but I hadn't used the headset since Burning Man, really. And so it had been about a month and I hadn't updated anything. So I really wanted to meditate last night. I was just feeling very stressed out and okay, I need to get grounded and I want to do this. And so I put the headset on, got everything up. The batteries were dead and the handset, so I had to run and get batteries. And then it wasn't reading the Guardian boundaries for me when I was trying to do it in the bedroom. And then everything needed to be updated. And so it became like this very tense moment of, God damn it, I just want to do it. And then the headset needed
I just want to friggin' meditate.
The headset needed to be updated. It's like, you can't launch the app until the headset's updated. And so I'm like, I give up. I'm going to go to bed madder than I was before. And so I finally got to meditate this morning. And my sister had given me this bag of clothes that she was getting rid of. And there's a bunch of workout clothes. And one of them was like these awesome hippie yoga pants that are tie-dye black and white with this black and white open tank top with a sun mandala on it. And so I just put that on because it was like loose and comfy, smells like patchouli, like my sister. And so I just did meditation. I go into the bathroom and Sean's shaving and he looks at me. He's like, oh, that really worked. And I'm like, namaste. But yeah, it's pretty silly. But yeah, something about the open spaces of VR and being able to meditate and see outside the four walls was very comforting. So,
yeah. I think that anyone who has access to nature is in a good place. And that was one of the things that LA County did wrong at the beginning of all this, was close all the nature trails.
Yeah.
Because people weren't distancing appropriately. But at some point it's weird because you can't trust people, but at some point you have to trust people enough to make them trustworthy. Like, and I live in Santa Clarita, so out here, luckily, the Santa Clarita was like, oh, hell no, we're not doing that. We're leaving our open spaces open, which was great because, I mean, they were pretty packed at first.
Sure.
And then things kind of leveled out. And I think people needed that ability to get out and connect with nature as a way to adjust and to ground and to adapt. Because, I mean, you're stuck in a house if you do have other people. It's not necessarily always the people you want to be with. And it's not always enough space. Yeah. So, I mean, especially like talking about school, it's like my wife's teaching upstairs in our bedroom and my son's doing Zoom downstairs. And if my daughter was home, it was like she's running around and trying to pull the computer off the shelf and there was nowhere to go.
Right. So exactly.
I ended up finding a space behind our pool in our condo complex just where I could sit on my picnic blanket and meditate because that was the only space I had that was interrupted.
A lot of my Zoom calls initially, because my son decided he'd take the entire downstairs area for himself for Zoom because he's the preteen. And then my daughter had her bedroom. My husband would work up here by our standing desk. Sometimes I would just do stuff in the hallway, or I would go downstairs, but more in the living room area and away from Zay. But for a long time, I was just sitting on our patio because we have a large backyard and I could breathe. I could just sit here and go, okay, we're going to Zoom outdoors and this is what it's going to be. But yeah, there's the trip to Missouri and Sonora was so good for the mind and good for the soul. And a lot of that was because we could just explore the outdoors and have space. And we didn't have to be around a bunch of people to do that. You know, it was just, there was more space. And driving
Yeah.
across Kansas, let alone you're just like, oh, here's a ton of it. You know?
I've got nothing but space.
Yes.
What do they do with all this space?
Not much. Oh, man.
I'm thinking of that song, Rain Makes Corn, Corn Makes Whiskey.
I don't know that one. Sing
Whiskey
it for
makes
me.
my baby feel a little frisky.
No, I don't know that one.
Country, yeah. And I think that might be some of the reason for the cultural divide too, because the sociologists have talked about how for the first time in human history, there are more people living in the city
Yeah.
than there are in the open spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it does affect your view on things a little bit.
We're smack in the middle of the city, and yeah, it's a very intense. I don't know. I don't enjoy it. Now we're in a good area. We're near the Grove and Farmers Market, so our nightly walks tend to be around Farmers Market, where nobody was for the beginning of the pandemic. It was just a ghost town there. And so we would walk, it was wide open, and kind of that's our backyard. And now there's more people, but if we go late at night, nobody's really around. I hate to tell people that. Now there's going to be all these people walking on our walk. I'll be like, damn it. Best kept secret. But yeah, you kind of have to find these places where you can.
Hey, I might drive half an hour to 45 minutes to go park at the Grove and take that walk. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was nice. And yeah, we were at the start of the riots, and all of the pandemonium there was right there at our intersection. And there's been a lot of intensity in the city, a lot of frustration seeing people not wearing their masks properly or not wearing them at all, and all of the nasty memes and videos that went around on social media, all the Karens as they call them, or people complaining about it.
Because if you have a problem with someone, you should show them by posting a nasty meme.
I know. And
I feel like, what's that guy with the red hair who pretends to be various versions of like, he's like got the yoga shirt on. He's like, when I'm upset with people, I do the only spiritual thing, which is get really passive aggressive.
I know. Social media was kind of our saving grace at the start of this, and then it has become our absolute destruction toward the end, because it's so polarizing, and relatives and friends unfriending people over politics, and then it got so nasty with the mask or anti-maskers and everything. I mean,
I'll say
we can't just post puppies and cats and funny things anymore. It's just
and then
become
people are stuck inside, and the only thing they have to do is Facebook.
Complain. Yeah.
And so I think that people who otherwise would get distracted enough by work or life or, okay, let's let it go, something to shake it off is there's no venue change.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So all that angst, we're stuck inside, we don't know what's going on, we're scared about the world, and there's a deadly virus, or maybe it's a hoax, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And all you have to do is like get sucked into these rabbit holes of like whatever bent you have, just go ahead and get sucked into the very worst that the internet of humanity has to offer in terms of just echo chambers. I mean, that's not to tangent too much because you're in law, you probably understand this. It's like Google and Facebook and all of the algorithms that are built by those companies are basically creating a little bubble for you, and whatever you search for, whatever you like, whatever your friends like, that's what you get shown. So your opinions, your worldview gets more and more codified and reinforced by the fact that the machine is showing you what it thinks you like. And so, ergo, you think that that's what is true, or that's what people think, because you don't know any better, because you're not at work mixing with other people. You're not getting other outside opinions from people who are different from you, for better or worse, right? You're not seeing that there's a wide world out there of people with human opinions. It's like, no, everybody I know thinks this.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's
crazy.
It really is. It really, really is. Yeah. I mean, we've tried to find ways that we can avoid social media or
Mm-hmm.
just try and find the positive aspects of it in all of this. But it's getting harder and harder.
Now, just to change the subject a
Yeah.
little bit, but not too much, like, how much are people going to want to have a huge party with lots of music and live bands and tons of alcohol when this is all done?
Oh my God.
That's all I keep
know.
thinking. People are saying like concerts are going to die and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking the moment this is over,
Yep.
maybe this is the chance where people actually put a value on music again.
Well, here's hoping, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely think that there will be a day when it goes back and there will be more appreciation than there has been in a long time for art in general. I mean, for
Yeah.
all art, Broadway being shut down, all of the fear, I suppose, is that artists have had such a hard road this year. And it started before the pandemic with AB5, where some people were already bowing out or not being able to work or trying to figure out how they could work in this. And so this has been a crap year for so many artists. And I already know even clients that are like, okay, well, this isn't going to go back to normal for years. So I'm going to go back to school and do this, or I'm going to do this. So there are people that are kind of pulling back and looking at, well, what can I do in the meantime? And there shouldn't be a meantime where we have this dearth of creative expression. We have to find some workaround or some way to express ourselves and to be creative, or you really get into this destructive model where kind of where we are.
Where we are, I mean, we were already headed here where it's, my dad calls them FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google have become the new power brokers. And what the strategy has been, they were always going towards streaming. And as far as I understand, it's like, okay, buy up all the catalogs. Anything that's new, that's good enough, then buy that too. And then be basically like copyright holders and just make a little bit of money from large amounts of like, okay, if we own it all, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's everyone's just paying $10 a month for music. It's like, all right, well, but we own the whole catalog. So that times a bazillion equals a bazillion. And that's how the business is done. And so there's a real danger there of, like you said, artists not being able to support themselves. It's already happening. AB5 has cut artists' livelihood. I want to ask you about that more. But the thing I wanted to bring up before that was the Blurred Lines lawsuit. Because I think that sets a terrible precedent.
Yes.
I mean, we'll have to explain for the audience what that was in case they don't know. But basically, it sounds like, from my understanding, is that basically it's like musicians and content creators are now wondering, if I write something, will I get sued for accidentally writing something that sounds like something that was once created?
Right.
That's not actually that, but it feels like it. So
that is largely what that was. And yeah, I mean, there were so many things wrong with that. But yeah, the concept of having to worry about infringement for something that is inspired by or has a vibe like this, I mean, we're getting a little ridiculous. When you when you count the number of notes and the number of chords that you have an option to write, there's only so much. And
there's only so many possible combinations.
Only so many possible combinations. And that's really, there were some talented musicologists that wrote about the Blurred Lines decision and explained why this is a dangerous precedent. And yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the case.
So the short story long is that Pharrell wrote a song in the style of Marvin Gaye and did such a good job of making it sound like it that he got sued by Marvin's estate, right?
Well, actually, people forget that it was Pharrell and Thicke that sued the Gaye estate. So Marvin Gaye's estate came up and said, hey, we feel like you're infringing on Marvin Gaye's materials, and we think you should pay us something or work something out.
So wait. Pharrell and Thicke sued the Gaye estate. Why?
They sued them for declaratory judgment, saying we're not infringing. And then there was a countersuit. So that is one of the weird things that gets lost in translation is they tried to nip it in the bud. And that's pretty normal. For IP litigation is the person that's accused of infringement, if they feel like they have the higher ground would file for declaratory relief, basically saying, we want you to declare that as a matter of law, this is not infringement.
Okay, so let me help the audience here.
Yeah.
IP, intellectual property.
Yes. IP.
All right, go on. That means like the song that you wrote and you do copyright thingy, and then that gives you intellectual property. It's like as good as a stock paper.
Yes. So intellectual property being people's creative works.
Yeah, and so the thing about past lawsuits like this is that one of the most classic was Vanilla Ice versus, and Queen sued him because the bass line for Ice Ice Baby sounds basically exactly like the bass line for, I don't know what the correct title for that song is.
I thought that was the one from Under Pressure, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Under Pressure. Yeah. And so in a quite comical turn of events, Vanilla Ice was able to win. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something like, well, their bass line goes do 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 do, and mine goes dun 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 dun. I believe that was how he skirted the lawsuit. Which was, of course, kind of a mistrial of justice, perhaps, but it didn't have any dire consequences for the music industry. It's probably helped the rap industry actually become a voice, ironically. But this lawsuit is exactly the opposite.
Well, and a lot of times things are lost in translation for the jury because the jury doesn't know these things, and they do have to rely on this battle of the experts. And it depends also on how you registered. If you're registering something as a PA work, a work of performing arts, which is protecting the underlying song, so the melody, the chords, and the lyrics generally, or you're registering a sound recording, there's going to be different aspects that are protected or not protected. I think that was a loss, as I recall, in Blurred Lines. They were listening to recordings, but I think they were dealing with a PA, and I don't remember offhand. But I know in one of the recent IP cases, that was completely lost in translation because you might have a bass line that's in a sound recording that had nothing to do with the original work that was registered with the Copyright Office, and you're suing based on what was registered. So,
right. So in other words, when you file a copyright, let's say you write a song, and we're looking at exclusively music, there's 100 other kinds of copyrights. Right. But with music, there are two ways, and some people do both, but some people go the poor man's route, which is like, oh my gosh, $35 a filing. Yeah. It gets expensive when you write hundreds of songs. So you technically you should copyright the song for its lyrical, melodic, and chordal content as the PA, performing arts.
Right.
And then when you record it, like if I recorded a record for you, and that final, we'll call it a CD, to be quaint. Yeah. That final sound recording is actually the copyrightable thing too. So let's say I copyrighted the sound recording because I paid for everything, then I would own that sound recording as the label, for example, even if you wrote the song and the words and the melody and things like that. And that's why those two things exist. But technically you can kind of sort of copyright the PA if you copyright the sound recording, and you can copyright the song, and then of course the sound recording rights, if they weren't claimed by anyone, could be sort of up for grabs in a certain way. But that's where you come in, right? As an entertainment lawyer, because things can and do get murky.
Well, and a lot of times when you're looking at old school songs and you're bringing into, well, how was Marvin Gaye's stuff registered? If it was not registered as the sound recording, well, it's going to be harder to protect a groovy bass line or a groovy guitar lick or something that sounds similar to something else if that wasn't part of the underlying song.
Well, that's the thing. They didn't sample. No. So some artists will take a drum loop from Funky Drummer, and they'll use that underneath their track and sing to it, right? Sure. And then that's called a sample. So that's a different kind of copyright clearance than if you, let's say, played the same notes in the bass line. Then that gets a little bit murkier, although that's also copyright infringement. Versus if you, in the case of Blurred Lines, the rhythmic content, melodic content, all the things you would base a song's structure on that makes it the song, that actually defines it as the song. Yeah. They were all different.
Yeah.
But he used like a cowbell, and he used a bass line that was syncopated, and he used like the vocal hey, hey, heys and all those kind of things, which made it feel like Marvin Gaye. And he was very careful to not. I mean, basically, Weird Al does this all the time when he writes his original material. It's like he takes the style up, mashes it up, and goes, okay, this is how you make a song that sounds like Jane's Addiction, right? And he'll just change it around, mix it up, and then shake it up and write a parody.
People do it in film all the time, and there's people whose jobs are to listen to sound-alike recordings and make sure they don't sound too much like, or that they've taken too much of it. But if you watch sitcoms, like the 30 Rock was very good at this. We rewatch 30 Rock a lot. But Tina Fey's husband is amazing. He's an amazing musician and does all of the underscores for that show. And he'll mimic things that you recognize immediately, like, oh, I get what he's doing. He's playing with this, and it's making me think of this other thing. But he's not borrowing the melody, or he'll reverse the melody line, or he'll play with the chords a little bit. So it's similar to. So
I bet you right now could probably write a song that sounds like an homage to Happy Birthday, but isn't.
Oh, 100%. People do it all the time. Yeah. Yeah, and especially in film, and that's kind of known. And
so it sets a dangerous precedent, because law is based on precedent, and so judges and juries rule based on prior cases. And so now the question is, if I write a song today and it happens to sound like something I may have never even heard, does someone now have grounds to come in and take everything I earned?
Right. Yeah, and it really didn't change the law. It was the jury's interpretation of how the law played out in that case, but it wasn't a good decision.
And there's no going back now. I mean, unless someone wrote a new law that counteracted it, right?
Right. I mean, the law of copyright infringement is the law of copyright infringement. It's been the same for ages. But when you have these situations where you're dealing with inverse ratio, or all of these different measures that help a jury figure something out, I mean, it just does. It becomes a very dangerous precedent for people to. So
here's an interesting interpretation. So the jury of your peers, which I don't know even applies to civil suits, but like, what if that meant that you'd had to be a jury of all musicians? I think that could have solved this problem.
I like that. I don't think it'll ever happen, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. And how would you get them all to show up on time to the court case?
Oh my God. Yeah. Nobody's going to show up for the start of trial.
I'll put it in the show notes. I watched a fantastic interview with Pharrell at Rick Rubin's house. And blurred lines did come up, and he apologized. He said, I really dropped the ball. Stevie Wonder at the beginning of this gave me the advice to get a really, really good musicologist, because he said juries don't understand this stuff. And he's like, I thought we had a slam dunk case, and I failed. And I feel like I failed you all. And Rick was saying, this is scary. We don't know if we can make music without the fear of arbitrary reprisal. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, how many more hits do people need for their creative flow before people just give up?
And it's hard enough to make a living at it now. I mean, it used to be that songwriting was a good profession. You could write for someone else and they can make it big, and you would receive some good money for that. Now it's like, how many streams on a Spotify do you need to make to have $1,000? I don't know. I think I did the math on, 500,000 plays. We did a single and it cost like $1,800. I think to make the money back on that, it would have taken 500,000 plays. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I know, it's absolutely crazy. And so many artists were supplementing, really getting by through touring income. And so once that got gutted with the pandemic, there's a lot of catalog sales going on for high-end artists, so that hasn't gone away. But I mean, people are literally selling their royalties in the future so that they can have cash now and live their lives. It's one of those intense things where you're just screaming uncle and going, all right, let's get back to normal. And
there's no normal left. This is normal now. Yeah. Well, and it's like, how are we going to change it going forward in a good way? Like, where is the innovation? Where is the 60s revolution of Woodstock? What is our Woodstock?
Yeah.
How do we get that back?
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously tech is filling in some holes, and there are interesting things happening in VR and in these. Tech can fill in a lot of gaps, but generally with an absence of community and emotion and that connection, that spiritual connection and energy flow and exchange that you get between an artist and an audience. That's going to be very, very hard to reiterate in any way other than just live shows. And streaming doesn't do it. And, we're all trying, but I think the sadness, the depression that's setting in from the four-wall syndrome is only enhanced by the fact that we don't have those opportunities right now to really connect one-on-one, to experience art and music and theater and Broadway and all of these things live. And people get a blip or a sense of it, like when Hamilton started streaming on Disney and people were like, awesome, I'm just going to play it nonstop 24/7 for the rest of the year.
Right. Well, and there's that too. I mean, there's that. How can the independent musician compete with Disney Plus?
Oh, yeah.
I could just stay in my jammies and watch something great because I don't have to go anywhere now. And it's kind of a dystopian view of the future. I mean, I think we're either going to become Ready Player One or Idiocracy. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one's happening first, but we're on our way to either, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to be, but I could get very pessimistic very fast.
I know.
And I don't have any bonbons nearby, so I will not.
Oh my gosh. Most depressing podcast guest ever. You're like, I'm not going to get political. And then we've talked about AB5 and social media.
I think we've managed to not.
Of the music industry.
Yeah, well, I think we've managed to not cross any blurred lines. But yeah, so what was AB5 about and what happened with that? Why? Because this has to be underscored. It's the first time I've seen bipartisan support on Facebook from a random sampling of friends, because I have diverse friends, Republicans and Democrats, that say, this sucks. We need to get rid of this.
Right.
And the legislator was completely tone deaf to it for the longest time, and people are out of work.
Things were agreed to in March. So, yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like the legislators on bigger things right now.
Yeah. We kind of shifted gears.
Yeah.
It kind of went to, oh, this is an emergency. We need to deal with this, to, oh, well, there's a lot of emergencies right now. Every month something new.
When at a time when people need to work freelance as a way to make ends meet because they're at home and they can't get to work, or the job options have vanished. It's kind of a weird timing for things too.
Right.
But can you explain what AB5 was and why it put musicians out of work?
Yeah. So AB5, it's a state statute that was based on this California Supreme Court case called Dynamex. So Dynamex actually had come out, and the court had held that across the board, most workers should be identified as employees, and that the burden of proof for calling them an independent contractor is going to belong to the hiring entity, and you have to go through these steps. So the court was basically saying there's a vast amount of concern over employee misclassification, calling people independent contractors so you can avoid giving them benefits and following wage laws, which is all fair and true, right?
So in other words, with the Dynamex company, people were driving cement trucks up and forth to the mine, and they were doing it lots of hours a day, and the company had hundreds of trucks, and they were saying, no, you're all independent contractors. You get a 1099. We don't pay you benefits. You own your own truck. Like, you have to do this if you want to work for us. But
right.
So, like, clear abuse of the classification.
Right, exactly. So AB5 was trying to codify the Dynamex case. And so they had this ABC test for misclassification to try and figure out if a worker should be an employee. And one of the aspects was, well, is the individual free from the direction and control in fact and in the performance of their duties. And that's often the case for looking at independent contractor work. So if an employer is saying, hey, I need you to show up now, like for Uber and Lyft, which is what this was designed to really circumvent, right? Okay, you're going to do this shift, and here's how you're going to do it, and here's how you're going to get paid, and this is what you're going to do, and this is where you're going to drop them off. And if this person calls you first, you're going to pick them up, and then you're going to do this. So they're directing. They're controlling how it's performed for the most part, right? And then one of the things was whether or not the service that's being performed is outside the usual course of business for the employer. So that's where they were saying with AB5, well, yes, you can still hire a cleaning service and not have to worry about whether they're an independent contractor or not.
And not have to get a payroll company.
Business.
Yeah.
Or a plumber. So those were exceptions, right? And then if the individual was customarily engaged in an independently established trade of the same nature of the services involved. So they tried to do some exemptions that seemed logical in their heads for AB5. And the exemptions just made it worse and more confusing because everybody read this thing and said, wait a minute, this isn't sufficient. I mean, journalists had an exemption, but it wasn't.
Yeah, if you're a photographer and you take photos for various newspapers,
right,
you can only take 20 photos.
Yes. Yeah.
Before you are misclassified. And
there were all these limitations that made no sense pragmatically. And with musicians, I mean, it was a real mess because almost every musician that's going into the studio would be an independent contractor unless you're dealing with labor musicians or people that are doing high-end stuff. But for all of the independent artists that were trying to record, every time you would bring somebody in for some quick work for hire session, they'd have to be an employee technically.
Right, like you're not in my band, you're not employed for my studio, but I want to hire you to come in and play a tin whistle on this one song that I wrote, because I wrote this one song out of every song I've ever wrote. This is the only one with a tin whistle in it. Mm-hmm. And you happen to play tin whistle. I'd like you to come over and play for 2 hours, please.
Yeah.
Can you come record at my studio?
Yeah.
Under AB5, I would have to get a payroll company and make you my employee in order to do that and go through all this red tape that basically made me kind of throw up my hands and go, well, I think I'll just pull it on a keyboard. I don't need a tin whistle that bad, right?
I know. You're like, I'm just going to learn the tin whistle myself. And
right.
I have a lot of pain in the butt effort here. Yeah, I mean, it got ridiculous.
And this murky language of like not directing you. Okay, so I'm a music producer. That's what I do. You come in, I give you music and you play it. And I say, oh, could you play that a little bit? Play the section a little louder. Now, all of a sudden, I'm your employer because I told you to play louder.
Right.
Or softer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was crazy. And there was an exemption for loan out companies, but it was fitting a round hole in a square peg. It wasn't perfect. It was kind of a fallback position for a lot of people to go through their loan out and try to work through that exemption. But there were still, I think there were 8 different things that they had to try and do to make that work, and it wasn't always perfect. And
a loan out is when, if I'm a professional kazoo player, if I want to form an LLC or a corporation so that my corporation can get paid by you to play, you pay my corporation $50 for me to play the kazoo, and then that corporation then employs me
exactly
on a salary to be a professional lifetime kazoo player. I think I make $1 a month doing that. It's pretty cool. Benefits are great.
The employee obligations to the loan out company. And then they'll sign an inducement letter saying, yes, I'm going to abide by this and get paid by them.
But see, Chris understands all this stuff, which is why you would hire someone like Chris to represent you, because you could try and learn it yourself, and then your brain might explode, and then you'd have to hire someone to clean it up.
It's been a lot of brain exploding this year with AB5 and pandemic, trying to figure out who's on first.
Okay, so let's get back to the roots.
Yeah.
So you're an attorney and you went to Pepperdine for law, but you're also a musician as well.
I am.
And which came first?
Oh, definitely musician. I started playing when I was 3 by ear. So I had been,
Wow.
my parents took me to see a production of Annie. It had just come out. And so I fell in love with it. I mean, little spunky redheaded Spitfire orphan conquering the world. And so
By the way, Christiane is spunky and redheaded as well.
I am a spunky redhead. So I was like, yeah, I like what you're doing. And so yeah, I went home. We had just a little organ or something. I don't really remember. I was 3, but I'm told that I just started picking out the melodies for all of the songs from Annie when we got home. And
What?
my parents just looked at each other and said, maybe we should get her lessons. And so
Wow.
I started. I remember that and this organ concert that I saw at a church that were the impetus of my interest in music. And I saw this concert with our old church organist, Marvel Jensen, and she was playing one of the largest pipe organs in the world at the time, and all this beautiful classical music on the organ, and it blew me away.
Was that Boston's organ?
No, it was actually in Santa Ana at this old Baptist church that doesn't even exist anymore. But it was
Wow.
It was huge and gorgeous, and the pipes built into the walls and just stunning. And I was like, I want to do that. So when they got me the lessons, there was this nun. She was part of the nunnery at St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange, where I grew up, and so I took lessons from a nun.
You grew up in a nunnery?
Well, I didn't grow up in the nunnery, but born at St. Joseph's and lived in the neighborhood. My mom worked there, so I was there all the time. And so there is a nunnery at St. Joseph's. And so I took from Sister Ava Lorette, and she taught organ and piano, which is what they were looking for. So
wow.
I was going to start on organ, and my legs were still too short to reach the pedals. So, so she said, why don't we start on the piano first, and pointed over to the piano. And I said, okay, but I really want to do this. And then I fell in love with the piano and never really looked back.
Well, you were exquisite at piano. It's a really great tone on your latest single that you sent me.
Thank you. Yeah, that one, where did we record? I think that was on David Peters' piano in his living room.
I love David Peters' piano.
Yeah, it's awesome.
David Peters is awesome.
He is.
I forgot we shared that connection.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Yeah, so we recorded that at his house, and my girlfriend, Devin, who, right before this, she was touring with Katy Perry. So
wow.
She bestowed upon me her graces and playing guitar on this track. And who else? Christo did a very comprehensive drum track, my longtime drummer, Christo Polani. And then we stripped it down because we just really wanted it to be very chill, folksy. Just felt like it needed a lot of drive in the drums. I always wanted this bump of heartbeat in it. But yeah, I wanted to keep it really simple. I brought in my friend Don Teschner to do some strings. I did some string patches, and there's kind of a blend of that. But yeah, we kept this one really simple.
David, by the way, has a studio built into his house.
Yeah.
And so he in the front rooms, beautiful studio, beautiful microphones. He does amazing folk recordings. And he used to throw house concerts, like where he'd actually live stream, like studio record the house concerts. And they were incredible.
Yeah. They were
amazing producer.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I remember he was picking my husband's brain on filming the house concerts and everything, and how should we go about this? And Sean gave him advice on GoPros and things. And like the next time we were over there, he had the whole house just geared up with cameras everywhere. And yeah, he just tweaked it out. And we're like, oh, okay, well, take advice and go all the 9 yards.
Yeah. You know what would be really nice at this point is if I could hit play on your song and we can take a listen to it, and then we can talk a little bit about the creation of it.
Yeah, let's do it. not what it was before. Full of mystery, her eyes hit him like a tidal wave. A pocket full of island seashells for a bright soul true and brave. But he has a premonition, some might say it's superstition. But he has a premonition that he's leaving soon, and he knows he's gotta read, though some say he shouldn't worry. He knows he's got to worry and catch the moon for his sweet Ernestine. Moonlight with fireflies in her hair. Beautiful, she's dancing without a care. Everywhere he went, she would go, for richer or for poor. Fights broke out almost every night as they headed for the back door. But he has a premonition, some might say it's superstition. But he has a premonition that he's leaving soon, and he knows he's gotta read, though some say he shouldn't worry. He knows he's got to hurry and catch the moon for his sweet Ernestine. Slow down, it's happening way too fast. Hold on, it's not like it's gonna last. Pictures of her are his only truth, his lover and his best friend. But a message from him in the afterlife was all that he could think to send. But he has a premonition, some might say it's superstition. But he has a premonition that he's leaving soon, and he knows he's gotta read, though some say he shouldn't worry. He knows he's got to hurry and catch the moon for his sweet Ernestine. The moon for his sweet Ernestine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That came out really nice.
Yeah. That was one we recorded last year. Everything was recorded and it just needed to be mastered. And my good friend Jamie Hill, who is just a dream, when I got laid off with the rest of the world in March, I was just like, oh, yeah, he was asking if I had any music projects in the works. And I said, I have 2 songs. They just need to be mastered. And then we had a couple things that still needed to be worked on, or a few instruments recorded or vocals. And he's like, well, I can do the mastering for you. And so he just,
Wow.
he knocked it out. And
Sounds amazing.
yeah, it was so cool. And I have another one that I haven't released yet, but will at some point, you know. But yeah, these were songs that I had written a while back. My mom had written this book for me and my sister. So it was one of those very gut-wrenching processes for her that we didn't know about until she gave it to us on whatever day. I think she gave it as a gift at Christmas time for us. And it was the story of her life, but it went back through relative stories, different things that happened in our family, and some very intense emotional things. But I was reading some of the family stories that were in the book, and this one in particular was the impetus for me to do a grouping of songs about the family. And this one was about my Aunt Ernestine, who actually passed away last year, and my Uncle Shelby, who passed away a long time ago. And they had met after the war and were madly in love. Shelby was a little older, and he had this, what I understood to be a routine surgery that needed to be done. I can't remember what he had, but he was nervous about it. Nobody else thought it was going to be a big deal, but he felt nervous about it. So he went to a jeweler. They were in Arkansas, so he went to some jeweler in Batesville, and he bought Ernestine this gold necklace with diamonds around it and had this engraving that said, "I will love you always, Shelby." And he gave them very detailed instructions to deliver it to her on Christmas Eve that year. And this was in July.
Whoa.
So he goes in for this procedure and he ends up getting an infection and dying. And so then Christmas Eve comes and the jeweler shows up on her door with this kind of message from the dead, from my Uncle Shelby, and this card and everything else and the engraved necklace. And I always just thought that was so lovely that he just kind of knew ahead of time, like, well, if all goes to hell, I got to make sure I'm taking care of her. That she knows that I love her. So yeah.
What a story.
I know. So yeah, that was very inspiring to me and so sweet. I just love that. And Ernestine and Shelby's daughter got to hear it this year when I released it, and she loves the song. And so we started talking on Facebook, and I'm like, I don't know if you have it, but I would love to see the necklace. And she sent me like a picture of the necklace to see. I'm like, this is just such cool trivia and so neat to be able to share that experience with them. And
wow, what a cool story.
Yeah.
And it comes through in the song, the vibe. I don't think you know exactly what it was that he captured and brought back, but you can tell that there's this sort of from the other side.
I was going for a Marvin Gaye vibe.
No, don't.
Just
trust
kidding.
me. You don't want to go there.
No. Absolutely. But yeah, it's...
So you're inspired by, obviously, Irish heritage.
Yes.
That's very apparent in your music. We go back, you and I, to Don't Call Us Tori, when you were in a band called Riddle the Sphinx.
Yeah.
And so I've known you musically for a long, long time. And so tell me more about that palette that you use when you write, because it's beautifully done, especially the single is so hauntingly gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, as you said, you and Shannon produced a show called Don't Call Us Tori, and it was a little tongue-in-cheek for all of the female singer-songwriters in LA at the time. And Tori was, of course, immensely popular for keyboard players and an inspiration.
Tori Amos.
She had her own sound and if you look back at Tori Amos's career, she had some hits and she had some misses. And before she kind of found her soul and her sound, I think she had like a heavy metal act or some really weird stuff that I've seen in the past.
I could ironically picture that. I haven't heard it, but I could see she's pretty metal.
Yeah. But it just felt contrived for her. And Tori grew up in the church. I grew up in the church. I think her father was a preacher. So I think that some of the sounds are inspired by hymns and church music, of course, and large choruses and choirs and things like that. But then on my side, there's also the Celtic background of Scots-Irish and those ballads and those impassioned love songs and death songs are always something that I've been very drawn to. So yeah, Riddle the Sphinx, and then later my own stuff was just an amalgamation of all of the different styles of music that I was exposed to. But a lot of that is so entrenched in you when you're growing up in the church or growing up with a certain style of music really ingrained. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of similarities there. I got back in touch, I don't know, maybe a year ago with, if you remember, Killarney Starr from
Yes.
our old Don't Call Us Tory days. But
Yeah.
Killarney, I got to see her.
She was fantastic.
Pandemic, yeah, she really is. And she's doing a lot of stuff on Instagram lately and trying to release some new music too.
Yeah, we had quite a few coming through. I mean, the idea was that at the time, the problem that a lot of female singer-songwriters had was that there wasn't exactly a good genre classification for the style of music that y'all did, but it was very influential, especially around the time of Lilith Fair and Sarah McLachlan and Tori Amos, of course. And so in the Music Connection reviews, they would always compare like your act to Tori Amos because you were a mezzo-soprano who played piano.
Yeah. 100%. And happened to be a redhead. Yeah.
So even if you didn't sound exactly or anything like Tori Amos per se, other than those two things, there wasn't a lot of vocabulary in those reviews. So it was kind of our playful homage to, we don't know how to name this genre showcase that we'd like to do, but we should all get together and play all female music showcase. So that was when I met Shannon Hurley. It was kind of like, well, what should I do to promote my music? I was like, get other people who sound like you together and make a party out of it, basically. Yeah. So we had fun. I think we ran that for like 4 or 5 years. Was that? We had some really good shows and people really liked the music.
Yeah, there was a built-in audience that would come back for every single show because they knew what they were getting. They were getting talented female singer-songwriters that were doing really cool, interesting things. And I mean, you get wide variety within that.
Some of them play guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it was actually cool because we did, and we had some full bands. We had some very, like, not rockabilly, but country influenced people. And we had some people who did like Irish, like what you did. And there was a good spread of real good talent. I mean, probably one of my all-time favorites was Libby Schrader.
Oh, yeah.
Libby was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so we also had
her religious degree, and I think she has a doctorate now in some form of biblical studies, and went back and did her master thesis on Mary Magdalene. And I don't know if you've talked to her in years. I met her for coffee a couple years ago, and I was just fascinated by what she's been up to. And
I ran into her at South by in 2012, and she told me the story of why she wrote the Magdalene album. Yeah. And it was just mind-blowing, and that she would change her whole life course for that. I mean, I'd love to have her on the show to talk about it because it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, she was great. And then I believe one time the woman who wrote the song Windy, everyone knows it's Windy, from the 60s, came through and actually did, gosh, I wish I knew her name right now. But
how cool is that? I don't know.
Yeah, so we had some really stellar artists come through, and of course you were a regular at the showcase as well. And I mean, I think that was just it. It was like trying to use the mold to break the mold. Yeah. In a sense. Like, it was just a lot of fun, and it was good music and good people.
Yeah, absolutely. And people that we've maintained friendships with over the years, and people like Shannon and Marina V, and just, I mean, I think Jilly Moon even played, and I wouldn't describe her as a Tori Amos at all, but she just has this Spitfire piano fun vibe and
amazing performance art. Like, I would call her musical performance art.
Yes, absolutely.
When she'd be playing, you'd just be wrapped with like, what's she going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just fun to bestow. We had a monthly residency together for years, and I would always stop and just watch her entire set because it was just visually stimulating and interesting and just always fun.
Yeah. To go back to the idea of what Tori did, it's like what she can do with the piano blows my mind, like getting the sounds out of that. And it was kind of hit me while I was listening to your single. I don't know if you feel this way, but like, to me, every piano that I sit down at, it's like it has its own soul.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're all different, and they want you to play them different, like
Yeah,
depending on which piano and how it sounds, right?
that's very true. And Tori Wood, she would record on these old beat up monstrosities or on a Rhodes or on a beautiful Bosendorfer and all these different styles, but she would play them differently depending on the piano. And yeah, I was at my parents' house celebrating my dad's 85th birthday yesterday, and I always go back and I play my childhood piano because it's just got a special voice and it's in a special room with special acoustics, and there's no other place I'd rather play. That's just, it's home.
So, yeah, I want to linger there for a minute because I don't know for you, but for me, like, that's what got me into music.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's just these moments where if I look back at seeing Annie on stage or hearing Marvel Jensen play an organ concert, there were moments in both of those shows, I'm sure, where the artists were tapping into the soul of their instruments. And that's what's memorable about a performance. And it latches on to you. I mean, there's many people can play the same instrument and play it poorly or not tap into that, you know? But I think for certain musicians, there are instruments that are more kindred spirits to them, and they can kind of help that voice escape.
Yeah, or the opposite. What I've had happen is I don't play guitar, but I've picked up certain guitars,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I could play. I mean, it wasn't much, but it was something like whoa, where's this coming from?
Yeah, that definitely doesn't happen to me. I'm no good on guitar. I did try to play a ukulele song once during the Dinner with the Kinneys stuff, and it was funny because I had burned the hell out of my hand, my left hand that night, and that was my chord hand. And I was just committed, like, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to play this damn song in the ukulele. And it was hard enough for me to get the chords before I had burned the hell out of my fingers. I burned them and was still trying to make the chords. And I'm like, all right, I did it. I'm going to have to do that again.
I'm sure if you played Iz's ukulele,
Yeah.
then maybe something magical would happen. It may not actually sound like Hawaiian music or chords or anything technical, but I'm sure something would come out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, instruments do have a personality and a life, and yeah, it's what the artist makes of it. But yeah, absolutely. My husband asked me the other night, because we'd written a book and we were trying to write each other's bios just as an exercise. And he's like, well, what actually made you want to be a musician? And I said, I think every musician will tell you it's not a choice. Like, you just have to do it. It calls to you in a really deep, meaningful way where that is what you do, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the people that feel that way and understand it know, like, yep, I'm a musician. You can call me an attorney. You can call me a lot of things, and I am all of those things. But in my heart, I am always a musician, and I've kind of built a life around that where I help other artists and I learn other things and find ways to give back to my community or to be of service to them. But yeah, at the heart of it, I'm a musician because I have to be a musician. There's just something ingrained in me.
Yeah. Well, gosh, you just offered me the most excellent segue, and then I heard a tangent. I'm like, no. So I will ask you about the Hearts Giving Hope charity, and if that's something that you still do, but I can't, because we haven't talked about your husband. So you just said you wrote each other's bio. So what did that sound like for Mr. Sean Kinney?
Well, I can never do his justice because he literally knows everything about everything. Like, he is a master of so much.
I mean, first of all, I have to say your husband is a clown.
He is. Yeah. And
I don't mean that in the colloquial way. He is a literal clown.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done that in years, but absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was a professional Hollywood clown. It's funny, one of our friends that did the clown circuit with him back in the day wrote a book called Hollywood Clown. It was all these stories, but they both kind of lived the same path. Jason just put it down in book form, but these obscure things, like Jason's book opens up where he's in a full, what the hell do you call them? You know, when you're completely charactered up. I don't know what those are called right now, but he's charactered up in some outfit where the head, the whole thing. And he's playing peekaboo with Robert De Niro for his son's birthday.
No way.
And he's inside the thing going, this is the most ridiculous, amazing thing nobody would ever believe. And Robert De Niro's like, peekaboo, you know? and so Jason wrote this book, but I mean, Sean has all those same stories, but Sean's path was different. I mean, he is a clown, but he's a filmmaker at heart, and he grew up just adoring Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and all these silent film era people that could make people laugh. He got up on stage when he was 7 years old and got this standing ovation and was immediately hooked in that energy exchange of making people laugh, giving back to them, and then getting that admiration in return that you get from the audience when they appreciate a good performance. And so made it his life's path to make people laugh and to help people find their passion. And so he's a muse for so many people. And he's a big advocate of read the effing manual, you know, and so he'll learn everything about everything and throw himself into it. And so people constantly need help on stuff, and Sean will come up with, I mean, it could be anything. It could be like a mechanical issue. He's like, oh, I read about that and da-da-da-da-da. But he's constantly helping people. We have this little joke where his business card is Hero at Large, because that's kind of his title. He helps people. And so, I mean, on numerous films have credited him Hero at Large, because they'll ask him, well, I don't know, you did like 20 things on this film. How would you like us to credit you? Hero at Large, fine. And so they do. And it's very cute. But we got into this thing where I was like, we should have a hashtag for you called Everyday Hero, because every single day something would come up and he would help somebody on the street. And I'm like, I'm going to start taking pictures and hashtagging. And I always miss it. Every single time I miss it. Like he saved a dog that was like stranded in the street, and he got a little sketch. Somebody like saved this dog. And so now I do the Jim and Pam from The Office, where I just do the mental picture, like the click and the hero. We do that all the time because he does. He jumps in and he helps people.
That's amazing.
Loves making people laugh, and he loves making film and art. And so, yeah,
he's a consultant to independent filmmakers, right?
He is, yeah.
He does that Hero at Large thing for hire if you need a jack of all film knowledge, and happens to, I can ask my lawyer wife if I don't know it.
Yeah, he's a film fixer. He knows grew up, he worked with Roger Corman, figuring this is going to be a throw me into the deep side of the ocean and get my feet really, really wet. You know, did the Corman stint like so many have.
A lot of people got their break doing very, very bad C- movies with Roger. I think C- is being generous. Yes,
probably would not have abided by AB5 rules, but
no, or basic sanitation rules, or yeah. But don't tell OSHA.
Learned a lot.
Yeah. Yes, and what to do and what not to do.
Yeah. And he grew up loving stunts because of the Buster Keaton aspect, but his stunt style is, again, making people laugh. I mean, he considers himself a physical comic, so the clown thing ties into that, the physical comic with the stunts. If you need something that's dangerous but funny, that's his thing. He loves that.
Well, that was my favorite When Worlds Collide moment, when he called my dad to do the longest fire burn while jump roping for the Guinness
No,
Book
it
of
was,
World?
now we got to do the jump rope. No, it was while doing jumping jacks while on fire.
Yeah.
And he did. And he holds the world record for that.
And like literally you guys came over and I
Yep.
was like, what are you doing here? Like it wasn't for music.
We did that because every birthday, barring this year was a little bit phoned in for the pandemic, but usually we try and figure out these grand things, and we were running out of stuff. And so I was like, well, let's look at the second round bucket list, because he had completed his bucket list years ago and got really depressed when he first completed it. And I'm like, write another bucket list. And he's like, oh. And so he did that and made harder things. I'm like, make it harder.
That's like totally first world problems. Like, right. I'm sorry.
100%.
I completed my first bucket list and now I'm depressed. And I know he's laughing at this right now, listening to this too.
Oh my God. Oh, so yeah, he.
How do you put up with it?
Oh my God, it's wonderful. Yeah,
you guys are like the power couple. I admire you two because you guys are you are so in love and so good together. It's and we just, I don't know how you put up with him is because you love him so much. It's incredible.
There were things on the bucket list where we're like, okay, he wants to be knighted. And so, like, we did the research and found, like, one of those knighthoods in Scotland. And so I got him, like, a lordship and, like, a knightship and Sealand or, one of those things.
Oh, my.
And then we figured for the world record, we would do this thing and called up your dad, and he was amazing. And Hunter helped out. And, yeah, so he has a little world record plaque on my piano.
Unbelievable.
Like you do.
Well, and you're not too bad yourself. You run your own law firm, and you, like I was getting at before, you also have a charity.
I
right?
do. Yes. And so I started that with my sister in, I think, 2002. And we've been going strong ever since, but kept it grassroots. Our main goal with that was I loved doing music stuff and working with kids. She loved doing visual arts things and working with kids. And we thought, well, why don't we marry the two and provide music and visual arts programs to at-risk youth, but free of charge. And so we can go into the inner cities and we can do drum circles or we can do art programs. And so for a long time, I was at every single event until we got big enough that I could say, okay, I can't be at this one, but I'm still almost at every event. We've kept it manageable. We've kept it where nobody takes a salary. We pay, the music therapist or the drum circle moderators, and we pay for crafts or actual expenses, but it's 100% give back type charity. And
unbelievable.
The goal is to give kids these opportunities, and until they were outsourced completely, there was a live-in facility for children of the night, which we were working with. That was, they had rescued people from child prostitution. So they had a all-female facility, and we would go in and do drum circles with them for a while.
Wow.
Those were very magical. There were times where you didn't feel like you were being of service at all or helping, but then somebody would just come up to you, and like the person that was the problem child of the drum circle that you were like, they don't get it. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And your head starts going. And that person would be the one that came up and said, sorry, I had such a headache tonight and didn't mean to be problematic, but this really helped me. Someone you didn't think you got through to that would just be like, wow, that was really magical. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, there were so many of those moments there in particular that were like that, where I'm like, yeah, you can feel the energy shifting in this room.
Wow.
In a really special way. And we work with...
Well, that's the power of music.
It is.
It's so incredible.
Yeah. And sometimes some of the kids we've worked with will have an attitude at first or not be interested, but it's very surface. You can't always take that as what's actually going on for them. Sometimes there's a looking cool or pretending game going on, but by the end of it, there's always a positive shift. And it's really, really, really cool. So yeah, we're still doing that, and we're trying to figure out in the midst of a pandemic how we can do things. We've got a few of the places that we work with where some of the kids are just exceptional artists. And so we have a community give back kind of thing because they're used to people giving back to them like a charity case almost, for some of them, it's kind of a stigma. So we allow them to give back to their own community and holiday cards for old folks' homes or wherever the case may be. But we do that a lot. And so some of the artists are still making cards that we can just scan and do electronic cards this year, things like that. Been looking at doing draw-alongs. Yeah, there's always something to do. And yeah, that's been something I've definitely been giving a lot of thought to this year because as we talked about, there's just a dearth of art and we can't do in-person things right now. So yeah, trying to figure all of that out.
Well, that's a profound concept that you just mentioned, is that sometimes the healing is in the giving back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think to me, that's a really meaningful part of the process. I mean, you're trying to teach people how to be positive role models, how to express themselves, and hopefully how to be great members of their community as adults. And I think a big part of that is learning how to give back and how to be of service to others. And that's something that's usually missing for people that are receiving the charitable end of something. And then some of them, it gets almost ridiculous where they're like, okay, we had a drum circle on Tuesday and we get this on Wednesday and we get this thing on Thursday and then there's a dance trip coming on Friday. And like this overload of positivity that they're just like, all right, well, whatever. And not really getting through to anything. When we come in and say, hey, there's this group of people that need help. And we thought it would be really cool to do this. And we'd like your help in doing it. And some of them do extraordinary cards where they've really put some time and energy and effort into making it personal and meaningful. And we used to do them as individualized cards. We'd be doing hundreds and hundreds of them. And now we just kind of take the best of and scan them and give different ones away that way. But yeah, it's a cool concept.
So you're an everyday hero as well.
Hashtag everyday hero too.
Yay! I'm so glad to know you. I still don't know how you do all this stuff and still have time to be a mom.
Yeah.
Like what? Actually, how? What? Tell everyone the secret because I don't know. Like, do you sleep?
Yeah, I definitely sleep. I make the kids sleep too, so I don't have to multitask there. I mean, I've tried to live without sleep and found that it's very counterproductive. But yeah,
you heard it here first. Christiane Cargill's secret.
Yeah,
sleep.
Don't sleep. Add an hour to your day. Yeah, I don't think there's a secret. I think you commit to certain things and then you have to prioritize and find a way to make everything work together. And a lot of it's time management and these basic things. But I definitely prioritize our family and our children, and they have hours of the day where they're in school. And then when they're not, we try and give them their attention, unless we're on a podcast.
I know. I was going to say.
Yeah. I told him beforehand, I'm like, Mommy's going to be out of the loop for a little bit. One already came in to borrow my tiara Celtic crown. She was just like, she walked in the door and she just put like her finger up like, shh, and then grabbed my Celtic tiara and left.
That's amazing.
What's happening.
At least they're at the age where they can do that and understand that. I think that's a big part of it, because we were like out of the woods with our kid we had one kid who was getting to the 5, 6 school age, whatever. Things were getting so easy, and then we had a baby.
Yeah.
And now we have a 2-year-old running around the house just tearing things up, and it's like impossible to like think straight.
Yeah.
Let alone, So maybe that's part of it. But I don't know. I think it's a testament to your personal power and, how obviously madly in love you and your husband are, just being able to work together the way that you do and manage all this, film this, and law firm that and music and when you were playing and obviously podcasts. And I want to thank you for making this time a priority and for coming onto the show. I've been looking forward to this for a long, long time. So I'm glad that we finally kind of synced up on that 2 weeks that for both of us ended up being 3 months, like, oh, dang, life happened and
Yeah.
shoot. But you texted me, I kid you not, like, I don't remember how this worked, but I literally had said to my virtual assistant, hey, I would like to call Chris to get her on a podcast because I think it's just going to be a lot of fun and it's going to help me get back into podcasting regularly. And then you texted me, said, happy birthday, whatever. Oh, by the way, we should do that podcast. I'm just like, okay, well, that's just how it works now. All right.
Well, it's funny because I had looked back at our text history when I texted you and said, oh, that's funny. We were texting back in April about doing this podcast, and I guess we dropped the ball there.
I just had the most crazy, outlandish amount of just almost comical, in retrospect, amount of things happen to me that's just perfect timing now. So thank you again for making this time. And where can people find you as a lawyer, as a musician, and your charity?
Yeah. There's lots
and on your
websites, socials. Lots and lots of websites coming up. Let's see. So for law, you can find me at ckinneylaw.com. So it's CKINNEYLAW.com. For music, you can go to christianekinney.com, which is CHRISTIANEKINNEY.com. Also riddlethesphinx.com. And those are all linked together, I think.
We'll also include these in the show notes.
A lot of my social is under Musical Redhead. And
oh, good.
Yeah. And heartsgivinghopefoundation.org is the charity.
Fantastic. All right. Well, oh my gosh, this time just flew by and this was amazing. Well, maybe when all this is over, we'll finally do that Don't Call Us Tori reunion we've been talking about.
I would love that. That would be so fun.
As a house concert, because if house concerts and Don't Call Us Tori had existed simultaneously, I think that
house
would have been the way.
At David Peters' house.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. We won't, he doesn't need to know. We'll just show up.
We'll just show up. Deal.
Awesome.
Amazing. Well, Christiane, thanks for being on the Language of Creativity podcast. And until we crash David Peters' house to do a Don't Call Us Tori concert, I will talk to you soon.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks so much.
I put together some ridiculously detailed show notes, probably more than anyone reads, but I think they're valuable. Please check them out. And if you get a chance, we need some reviews on iTunes. So if you like our show, leave a review. Thanks for tuning in, and there's a lot more coming. I'm Stephen Levitt, and this is the Language of Creativity podcast.